A quiet royal decision, a sudden removal from the payroll, and whispers racing through palace corridors. The moment Prince William took control of one of the most powerful estates in Britain, a shocking move reportedly left members connected to Queen Camilla furious. Behind the polished image of the monarchy, something far more dramatic was unfolding. A silent reshuffle of power, influence, and loyalty inside the royal machine. The day after Queen Elizabeth II passed away, the world believed the biggest story was grief. Millions mourned the woman who had ruled for more than 70 years. Cameras focused on black-clad crowds, solemn ceremonies, and the emotional transition of the crown. But quietly, almost invisibly, another shift was taking place behind the palace walls. And this one was about power. Because the moment King Charles III became king, his eldest son instantly inherited something far bigger than a title. He inherited an empire. Not a symbolic one, not a ceremonial one, a financial kingdom worth billions. Almost overnight, William became the Duke of Cornwall, and with that title came control of the legendary Duchy of Cornwall, one of the most valuable private estates in the world. For centuries, the duchy has quietly generated enormous wealth for the heir to the throne. Farms, villages, coastlines, forests, investment portfolios, an entire economic network stretching across England. And suddenly, all of it belonged to William. Imagine the scale of that responsibility. Roughly 135,000 acres of land spread across the country. Rolling farmland, tenant villages, tourism properties, commercial buildings, all feeding into a financial engine built over generations. Some of the estate's most stunning holdings include land connected to the Isles of Scilly, an archipelago famous for dramatic cliffs and crystal-clear waters. The duchy controls nearly the entire island group, meaning its influence stretches into one of the most unique coastal regions in Britain. But that was only the beginning. The estate also reaches deep into Devon, Herefordshire, and Somerset, regions where farmland and historic properties have quietly grown in value for centuries. To outsiders, the duchy might sound like an old royal tradition, but in reality, it's a billion-dollar business. Millions of pounds flow through it every year from rents, agriculture, tourism, and investments, money used to fund the work of the future king. And suddenly, a 40-year-old prince found himself responsible for running it all. That meant something else too. Every decision he made would matter. Every appointment, every contract, every person on the payroll. All because when someone takes over a financial empire this large, the first thing they do is review everything. And that is exactly what William did. Quietly, methodically, without announcements, without drama. Behind closed doors, he began studying the duchy's internal structure, finances, contracts, staff members, long-standing professional relationships. For decades, the estate had been managed under his father's leadership. Many of the people working within it had built their careers under Charles. But William wasn't Charles, and he had his own vision. So he started asking questions. Who was managing what? Who had been hired? Where was the money going? And most importantly, who actually belonged in the new era of royal leadership? At first, the process seemed routine. Any new executive reviewing an organization would do the same thing. But then one name appeared in the financial records, a name that carried enormous personal connections inside the royal family, Annabel Elliot. To the public, she was known as a respected interior designer. But inside royal circles, she was something more significant. She was the younger sister of Queen Camilla. For years, Annabel had worked closely with the Duchy of Cornwall, designing interiors for several of its holiday properties and cottages. Her work helped shape the comfortable country-style visitors associated with duchy rentals, and her connection to the estate went back nearly 2 decades. When Charles married Camilla in 2005, Annabel was brought into the duchy's professional circle. Over time, she became a familiar and trusted figure working within the estate's projects. Financial records showed she had received annual payments ranging between roughly $19,000 and $82,000 for her work. Not huge compared to the duchy's enormous wealth, but significant enough to reflect a long-term professional relationship. For nearly 20 years, her role continued quietly. No controversy, no headlines, just another name on the payroll, until William took control. Because when he reviewed the estate staffing structure, he made a decision that shocked many inside royal circles. Annabel Elliot would no longer be employed by the duchy. No dramatic announcement, no public criticism, no official scandal, just a quiet removal from the payroll. After almost 2 decades, inside palace corridors, the reaction was immediate. Whispers, confusion, shock, because to some observers, this looked like far more than a simple staffing change. It looked like a signal, a message from the future king that the old network surrounding Charles, including people connected to Camilla's family, would not automatically continue under his leadership. And suddenly, royal watchers began noticing something else happening. New names, new faces, Close associates of William quietly appearing in duchy roles, trusted friends, people connected to him personally, even individuals linked to his children's social circles. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. The next generation of royal leadership was assembling its own inner circle, and that realization sent waves of speculation through royal observers. Because inside the delicate web of palace relationships, nothing is ever purely professional. Every decision carries history. Every appointment carries symbolism. And for some members of Camilla's extended family, this sudden shift reportedly felt like a door closing, a door that had quietly remained open for years. But to truly understand why this decision carries such emotional weight, you have to go back much further than the duchy payroll, back decades, back to a story that shaped William's entire life. A story centered on one woman whose shadow still hangs over the monarchy, Princess Diana. Because long before William inherited billions in royal land, he grew up watching one of the most painful chapters in royal history unfold in front of the entire world. And those memories never completely disappear, because behind every quiet royal decision, there are shadows stretching back decades. And when it comes to Prince William, those shadows lead directly to the most painful chapter in modern royal history, the story of his mother, Princess Diana. For many observers, William's decision to quietly remove Annabel Elliot from the duchy payroll looked like nothing more than administrative housekeeping. A new duke reviewing finances, a restructuring of staff, a standard leadership transition. But inside the royal family, decisions rarely exist in isolation, because the past never truly disappears inside the monarchy. It lingers, it echoes, and sometimes it quietly shapes choices decades later. To understand the emotional gravity surrounding this moment, you have to rewind to the early 1990s, when the marriage between King Charles III and Diana began unraveling in full public view. At the time, Diana had already captured the hearts of millions. Her warmth, compassion, and effortless connection with ordinary people transformed the global image of the British monarchy. But behind palace walls, the fairy tale was collapsing. Because Charles's relationship with Queen Camilla, a connection that predated his marriage, had never truly disappeared. For years, it existed as a whispered rumor. Then, in 1994, Charles openly acknowledged the relationship in a televised interview, confirming what the world had long suspected. For the public, it was shocking. For two young princes watching their family fall apart in headlines and tabloids, it was deeply personal. William and his younger brother, Prince Harry, were still children. Every newspaper carried new stories about their parents' collapsing marriage. Every television broadcast dissected their family's pain. The private struggles of the royal household became a global spectacle. And then tragedy struck. In August 1997, Diana died in a devastating car crash in Paris. William was only 15 years old. Harry was 12. The image of the two young princes walking silently behind their mother's coffin became one of the most unforgettable moments in modern history. A moment of unimaginable grief, broadcast to billions. The loss left a permanent mark, not only as sons mourning their mother, but as future leaders of an institution that demanded emotional control even in the darkest moments. Years later, the royal family slowly moved forward. In 2005, Charles married Camilla. William attended the ceremony, showing public respect for his father's decision. Over time, he maintained a polite and courteous relationship with his stepmother, never allowing personal history to erupt into open conflict. But politeness is not the same as forgetting, and it certainly doesn't mean family dynamics disappear when business decisions are made, because William's role as Duke of Cornwall comes with enormous responsibility. The Duchy of Cornwall is not a ceremonial estate. It is a powerful financial institution built across centuries. It supports the heir to the throne and plays a critical role in maintaining the financial independence of the monarchy. And the deeper William examined the estate after inheriting it, the clearer one reality became. This was not simply land. It was a kingdom of wealth. The duchy's history stretches all the way back to 1337, when Edward III created it for his son, Edward the Black Prince. With that charter, a tradition was born. The estate would always belong to the monarch's eldest son and heir to the throne. Generation after generation expanded it. Fields turned into farms. Farms turned into villages. Villages turned into investment portfolios. Over nearly 700 years, the duchy evolved into one of the most extraordinary private estates on earth. Hundreds of tenant farmers work its land. Tourists rent cottages built across its countryside. Businesses operate on its properties. Investments generate steady income. By 2025, reports suggested the duchy was producing roughly $30 million annually to support William's duties duties as the future king. But the duchy is only one piece of a much larger royal property network, because beyond it lie two estates that hold even deeper symbolic power within the monarchy: Sandringham House and Balmoral Castle. Unlike Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, which belong to the crown, these two estates are private royal property. They pass directly from one monarch to the next. Sandringham, located in Norfolk, has long served as the royal family's Christmas retreat, a place where generations of monarchs gathered away from public life. Balmoral, nestled in the Scottish Highlands, carries an even deeper emotional history. It was purchased by Prince Albert for Queen Victoria in the 19th century and quickly became one of the royal family's most beloved sanctuaries. For decades, Queen Elizabeth II spent her summers there, riding horses, walking through forests, and escaping the pressures of royal duty. And in 2022, Balmoral became the place where her extraordinary reign came to an end. When Elizabeth passed away, ownership of both Balmoral and Sandringham transferred to Charles as the new monarch. But royal inheritance always moves forward. Eventually, those estates will pass again. One day, when William becomes king, control of these legendary properties will move directly into his hands. And with that control comes enormous influence, because whoever controls the royal estates also controls who lives there, who visits, and who quietly disappears from the inner circle, which raises an uncomfortable question whispered among royal observers. What happens to Camilla when that day arrives? Right now, her position is secure. As queen consort, she shares royal residences such as Buckingham Palace and Clarence House alongside Charles. She attends official engagements, represents charities, stands beside the king during ceremonies. Her role has grown steadily over the years, evolving from one of the monarchy's most controversial figures into a central presence within the royal household. But history has its own rules. If Charles were to pass away before Camilla, her title would change to Queen Dowager, the traditional title for the widow of a king. And at that moment, power would shift again, because estates like Balmoral and Sandringham would immediately pass to the new monarch, William, in decisions that seem small at first but slowly transform the balance of power. And if this first move inside the duchy is any indication, the future king has already begun rewriting the rules.